I'm one of the undergraduate career counselors here at Georgia State University's Robinson College of Business. My counterpart, Lakeisha Hughes, is on. She's also an undergraduate career counselor, and we have our employee relations specialist, Marielle Thomas, who is also here as well. We do want to make sure that those students who are here for BCom, be sure to take a screenshot of today's session, so that way you will receive credit and you will upload that into your Dropbox tab on iCollege. So again, make sure you take a screenshot at the end of the panel, and we'll let you know when is a great time to go ahead and take that screenshot. So that way you will receive credit for your BCom lab. Okay, awesome. So today we are talking about the art of networking, and we have special guest presenters. We are so glad to have them, so glad that they took time out of their busy schedules and their day to pour in value and to give you guys some information about the art of networking. And so I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves one by one, but I do want to just mention their names. We have Sheena Hargrove from VMWare, who's here. We have Eddie Hayes from Dell, as well as Meredith Trotta from Equifax. So thank you guys so much for coming on. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with the session. So we'll start with Sheena from VMware. We're going to let her introduce herself. And guys, if you want to get a clear picture of the panel, be sure to put it on the speaker view, so that way you'll be able to see the panel, because most of them have their cameras. They all have their cameras on. All right, go ahead, Sheena, take it away.
All right, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? I'm Sheena Hargrove. I'm a senior solution engineer at VMware. I've been in tech for about 15 years, working for a few different big brands like IBM and Eternity Software. Have about 6 years experience as an SE and 7 years experience as a consultant. So I'm glad to be here to talk about networking today.
Awesome, awesome. Next we have Meredith. I see Meredith on.
Hi everyone, my name is Meredith Trotta. Thank you for joining. I know you guys have crazy busy schedules. I have 2 kids in college myself, so I always appreciate it when actually students come to these events. And my background is I started out in college admissions, so years ago, and then I worked in recruiting for companies probably since, gosh, 98 in New York City, and with Equifax for the past 3 years. And I'm the director of university relations here, and all of our early career talent pathways to work at Equifax. So super excited to be here. And the #1 tip is show up to events like this, so you guys are already off to a great start.
Awesome, thank you. We're so happy to have you as well. And we'll go ahead and let Eddie introduce himself as well. Not sure if he's on yet, which is perfectly fine. Once he hops on, we'll make sure that he's on. We'll be able to introduce himself as well. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get to some of the questions for the students who are here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. Feel free to drop those into the chat box. We do have members of the Career Advancement Center who will be answering those questions, and we will make sure that the panel gets a chance to answer those questions as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So ladies, why is networking important? What is the relevance or the importance of networking?
Okay, I can take it, Meredith, if you're okay with that, me going first. For me, networking is kind of at the very top of my list, because honestly, I can say every opportunity that I have had in my career has come from some form of networking. Every last one, right? And I understand that networking for some is very intimidating. It can be very hard. But for me, it's like I played a lot of sports. So for me, networking is just another sport. It's something you have to work. It's something that you have to like really exercise those muscles, right? It's something not everybody likes to do, but it's a necessity, because most of my opportunities, like I said, one of my big opportunities getting here to VMware came from a childhood friend that I had lost contact with for probably over 10 years. but she reached out to me and wanted me to mentor her because she was in a similar field. And I wanted to move back south because I was up in Boston, tired of the cold. So I'm like, I want to move back south. I'm looking for an opportunity. She's like, my organization has an opening in their consulting department. I can put your resume through. 2 weeks later, I had this opportunity. So every opportunity I have, from my first job, networking at a NSBE conference, landed me at IBM, and then networking with internally in the organization has granted me all of my opportunities. So it's literally number one on my list. You never know who holds the key to your next opportunity and career growth.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that. I think we can all say that at this point in our careers, that so much of it is the opportunities that we took advantage of, and the people that we met who have helped us. And then in return, now we sort of pay that the other way. There's really three reasons to network, but the two that are the most important are to find a job. Of course, that's what you guys are all interested in, right? But also too, and I think that Sheena was sort of alluding to this, is that you'd also network internally when you have a job, because the more people that you meet, they'll make you better at your job. So if you take some opportunities to meet people once you get a job, you'll be able to sort of expand your skill set, your network of people who know that you're good, or that you're the kind of the person that you are, and sort of just like it will open up so many doors just in your career, not even getting the next job, but just being really good at your current job. So you never really stop networking. I think people are sick of the word, don't you guys think? I think everyone's like, oh, networking. But it really is the most basic of things, which is, my background is recruitment. And when you're thinking about recruiting and you get resumes, and isn't your worst complaint that, like, I'm more than this piece of paper, right? Like, I hate that I have to just have this stupid piece of paper. And so your opportunities to show that you're more than a piece of paper are to take advantage of networking, quite honestly.
Awesome. That was great feedback, ladies. I agree that the word kind of gets redundant after a while, but it's just the environment that we're in, and it does give you an opportunity to show yourself and your character and get to know a person outside of that paper. So thank you, guys. So the next question, we know that we are in a virtual environment, and like life changed overnight. Luckily, because of the use of social media platforms like LinkedIn and the students utilizing their handshake profiles and things like that, they're able to connect with employers and recruiters and different people from different organizations virtually. So for the student who doesn't really know how to navigate networking in that virtual environment and in this virtual space, how do you network virtually, or what are your best tips or practices for networking virtually?
Well, I guess I'll go first. It is a little bit tricky. So one of the things that I found, and I don't know if you guys agree, is that since COVID hit, I have had way more opportunities to network than I ever had before, because everyone is inviting me to virtual. I just got invited to something from Handshake, does location matter, and I can go to this session to learn something, but I can also go to this session to network. So because of the virtual reality, I think you're getting invited to a lot more of these things, which maybe are easier to go to because you don't have to, worry about your class schedule, or you can pop on, that you can pop off. One thing I am going to give you a tip on is that I know you guys aren't showing your cameras today. I don't think you're showing your videos. I'm not exactly sure. I know there's rules about, like, don't show your video if you have speakers. But when you network with people in this virtual environment, it is very important to turn on your camera. And I know that can be really intimidating, and like, what's my background? I mean, sometimes my background is like my son walking by. I mean, we're all in the same boat that way, but just don't be so afraid about turning on your camera, and try to get comfortable enough that your personality comes through. So number one, there's gonna be more opportunities to network. So look for those. And when you get invited to those things, say yes, good job today. And number two, don't worry about your background so much, just turn on your camera.
Yeah, I echo that. And like you said, we're in a different world and we're all figuring it out. So give yourself some grace as well, because we're overwhelmed as well as you guys, I'm sure. So I would say, in addition to having kind of that environment where you're invited to multiple things, try to prioritize. right? Try to figure out what is my end goal and what do I hope to accomplish with this particular session, right? Because that's going to give you a guiding path, because you're going to be inundated with a bunch of meetings, but it's important to prioritize and see, what can I get out of this? Who can I connect with? Definitely turn on your camera. Your personality shines through. Let them see your shining face. Even if you're the only one, you're definitely going to stand out. So I think I echo a lot what Meredith said. Just give yourself some grace too, because I think we all are kind of overwhelmed with all of the Zoom meetings.
It's virtual Zoom overload.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another thing too is that it is really creates a relationship, and really networking is relationship building. You know, it's in the very seeds of relationship buildings. But if you're good at networking, like I hope after this, I can be in touch with the other panelists, you know? I mean, I hope that this becomes like a pathway for me to have more of a relationship with your school and with your business program. So, I mean, everything's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to build a relationship. So when you do see somebody's house, it creates a bigger bond than, and the chaos sometimes is really helpful, you know? It's like, oh, there's her son, or like, you know, like she's a regular person. I know she's looking at my resume, but she's also just this regular person who seems kind of normal. And when you meet at Starbucks, you know, you don't really get any of that feel. So kind of just lean into the weirdness of it.
Yeah, I think it makes it more personable and, like you said, more relatable. Like, I have little kids, so sometimes if I'm in a student session, my son, who's you know, in virtual school just like our students, may peep in, and they actually see like, oh yeah, I understand. And so you can kind of understand and empathize with people more in this environment, because you can see them in their comfort, and it creates a comfort zone for you, because you are in your home or in your area or in your office space that's personal, and it's not like, oh, we're meeting on somewhere and it's like, you know, neutral territory and nobody knows anybody. So right. I think it makes it more personable, and it should be easier in a sense. Which brings us to our next question. I see someone dropped a question in the chat. I'm going to address that, but I do want to ask this first. So we are in a virtual environment. We are networking virtually. We understand how to navigate that in a sense, but how do you really build a relationship with a person in this virtual space? I don't know if there's a big difference, you know, whether building relationships in person or virtually. Can you still build those authentic relationships?
Absolutely. And that was the key word, right? Authentic. Be genuine. Always offer. I think the rules still apply, right? Like the main things, be authentic. Don't just lead with, you know, what I can offer you. Offer to help, right? And offer and actually have like those conversations where you're understanding that person, what their job is, what their priorities are, what are their likes and dislikes. Do like the follow-ups as well. Follow-ups are big. After this session, if you want to connect with someone on LinkedIn, send them a personal message. I have this thing where I like to, if I have a session with someone, I send a Starbucks card, right? It may just be like $5, but that could make someone's day, right? And that goes a long way, because your authenticity shows through those interactions.
Yeah, I think that that's the key too. I also think that there's always this sense that when you're more junior and you're looking for a job, that like, you know, you want to be careful not to ask like, oh, can you help me get a job? Like, ask for advice. Like, hey, do you know someone? What was your experience like? Do you have a connection there that I could reach out to? But then never forget that you can offer them information too, especially the fact that you're Gen Z and you're like the new generation. So everybody's like, oh, we figured out millennials. Millennials are like so old, they're running the company. And so now we have Gen Zs. And so what's really crazy unique about your generation, and you guys should really embrace this, is that you do not know a time in your life where you didn't have a phone. And a phone, whatever, it's a computer in the palm of your hand. And I will tell you right now, the first time I had a computer, I think it was like my first job out of college, like my own computer. And then we didn't have laptops. I mean, I'm telling you right now, you guys are at a very good advantage in this workplace, because you can really offer up your understanding of customer service. Like my kids, it's like, if they can't do it on an app and they can't return it and it's not easy, they won't buy it. I mean, they are so harsh, you know, I'll like wait forever for something, you know, and so you have a different perspective on the world and you can offer that. So don't forget that you actually have something to offer, and that's how you build a relationship.
I like that. It's almost like a value exchange versus you're the only important person. Like, hey, I got something to offer too. I think that's a good segue into this next question that a student dropped in the chat. And they said, how does a shy person network?
Okay, so for me, like I'm going back to what I said previously. It is a muscle. You have to work it. Everybody's not an extrovert. Everybody's not a promoter or a go-getter, and that's okay. There's a sliding scale, right? So first it's understanding what your network style is, right? And they kind of break it down in kind of 4 different kind of personality types. It's like you have the go-getter, the dominant personality, who may come off as a little bit pushy because you're out there, you're selling yourself, right? And then you have that promoter or the influencer who is like has a product or something that they're trying to put out there to sell to someone else. And then you have someone who's like a nurturer or a style who really values going in depth and creating that full life cycle relationship, right? And then you have the conscious person who's more detail oriented. So I think it's important to understand your style and don't be afraid to step out of your boundaries. I know we're in COVID right now, but prior to that, what helped me really kind of expand that network was really going to events by myself. I didn't surround myself with a lot of people because what happens is you end up getting distracted on talking to the people you came with. That's not my goal. My goal is to expand my network and to meet new people. So I purposely did that, and that forced me out of my comfort zone. And that's helped me start to build my muscle of networking.
Yes to all of that. That is like such great advice. And then I do think that sometimes I think we think people who are extroverted have an advantage, but they don't necessarily have an advantage because I think sometimes they can be a lot. And I can be a lot, right? Like I'm super friendly and I can talk to anybody. And so sometimes it's really nice to talk to somebody who's sort of a little reserved. And so I think honestly, it doesn't matter. But here's the way you can level it out is that everyone should have a pitch. I mean, we called an elevator pitch. I don't know when we'll ever all be in an elevator together again. So we may have to rename it. But it is really important, especially if you're shy and you're reserved and you're not sure how to start conversations, to have a very short pitch about who you are, right? I'm Meredith. I work for Equifax. I'm in University Relations. I run our graduate development program. So a little bit about me, and then you can say, oh, what's graduate development? Or, oh, how long have you done that? It's just a way, an opener. So for you guys, it's really simple. It's, my name is Jimmy, and I'm a senior, and I'm studying this, and I'm interested in job, and my last internship was here, and I'm interested in a job in X. So really get that down so that when you do meet people and they shake your hand and you can say, hi, my name is Meredith, and then you have that little blurb. And really think about that blurb as just you're offering people pathways for conversation and they can pick a path.
That was great advice, both of you guys. I like that go to events by yourself. I never thought about that as far as networking, because you do tend to kind of, you don't want to say click up, but kind of keep that little circle tight, and you may talk to 1 or 2 other people, but 9 times out of 10 you're still going to talk to who you're comfortable with. And if you came to an event to network and build your network, you got to get out of your comfort zone. So yeah, that was great advice, both of you guys. So here's another question, guys, and it's from a student in the chat, and it's a very good one. It says, is it more important when networking to talk about yourself and your like hobbies, etc., or talk about your experience and qualifications? She said, I know that they're both important, but there is one more important than the other.
That's a really great question. Meredith, do you want to tackle it first? I do have a few things, but
you go. You're so good. I like to hear what you have to say.
So for me, it's about finding that right balance, right? And how I approach things. Like I'll give you a true life story that just happened to me. I was speaking with the director about a potential opportunity, right? And I didn't want to come off, just blurting out like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for. We found common ground in our hobbies, and we both have a passion for helping women in technology and STEM. Half of the conversation was about STEM and building women and the different programs we're involved in. And that way I was able to kind of talk to my professional experience and my leadership capabilities within the programs that we're building while also relating to each other. So it was really a fine balance of striking conversation, being genuine, bringing up my hobbies that kind of relate to what she's doing within the realm of the job title, right? Like laying down my leadership skills, but in more of a conversational piece, right? I approach everything as a conversation. I never want it to be one-sided, where I'm just listing, this is what I do, this is what I have in common, because my resume does that, right? But how can I translate my resume into a full-on conversation where it's like, I want to talk to her again, even if it's not about the position. I want to talk to her again about the things that she's working on. This is how we're similar, because people do gravitate to people who are similar to them and have, you know, common goals and interests, right? And where we can help each other. So I think that was one of the learning lessons for me, is just really striking a balance.
Yeah, that's great. I would say too, you know, I think that's so perfect because we often think that we're supposed to do all the talking, and we really have to do a lot of listening and networking. And I'll tell you a funny story, just because I love that you tell stories. So I'm going to tell a funny story too, is that, you know, when you first meet someone at a networking event, like in person, and they tell you your name, you cannot remember it, you know, because you're so nervous, and they can't remember no one can remember anyone's name. And so there's this nervousness on top of it, let's be honest. And so you're like, I got to think of the next thing I'm going to say. And like, we're on this panel, we're like, I got to think of the next thing I'm going to say. And like, am I really listening to Sheena? Am I just like thinking of the next thing I'm going to say? And so I was actually talking to our CEO after an event that I had last year that was super awesome. And I asked him, it was summer, and I said, oh, are you planning any vacations with your kids this summer? And he said, yes, we're going to. I have no idea what he said, because I was worried about the next thing I was going to say. And then I left that interaction thinking, when I was sending him like a thank you note for coming, I was like, oh, I wish I could have said, enjoy your trip to blah, blah. But I literally couldn't even listen because I was so nervous about the next thing I was going to say. So I think some of the skills that you want to develop are actually listening. And again, good luck, right? I've been around doing this forever. And so we all have those moments where we like blank out completely. But when you listen, you can learn about where the conversation should go, so you can take advantage of it the way that Sheena did and like create that relationship. So just remember that that's perfectly said, that it's a conversation. Yeah.
That was awesome, because that is so true. There's so many times when you're talking and you're networking with people and you're just so busy trying to think about, you don't want to sound like you don't know what you're saying, or you don't want to sound like you're not articulate. So you're thinking about what you're going to say next and you forget to listen. So listening is just as important as talking, if not more important, because that one key thing that you picked up on from what they said could be the thing that gets you into the door. So if you remember, you know, what vacation he went on, that would have been you. Oh my gosh,
I still wonder.
all kind of cool points.
I have no idea.
That's funny. You could have followed up and said, how was your vacation?
Right.
Where were you going, buddy?
Right. Okay. So guys, I'm having a great time. I hope the students are getting as much value as I am, because this is how you really build that authentic relationship. Remember, we talked about authenticity, and those are the key points. Those are the things I hope you guys are taking notes, guys, because listening more than you're talking, that's a good tip. When you go to networking events, go by yourself sometimes, because you get a chance to actually focus on, you know, expanding your network versus being with that tight-knit group that you went with. Here's another question. This is one of the questions that we actually have. And so we know that LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool for networking, for students, for professionals. But do you think that LinkedIn is the best way to network right now in this virtual environment? And if so, what are your top tips for networking on LinkedIn?
I think, did we lose Meredith there, or did we lose me? I don't know what happened.
I think I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to tackle this from kind of a different perspective, because when I first started networking, there was no LinkedIn, right? It was literally, you went to career conferences, you had your paper resume, and, you know, that's how you meet people. You hope to get a call back, right? So I would definitely say use LinkedIn to your advantages. I don't even know what Handshake is. I'm assuming it's another networking tool, but that just, I guess, showing my age. But LinkedIn for me has been a very powerful tool, but I also use it wisely, right? Like I make sure my bio and my description is up to date with what I'm possibly looking for, because you're gonna get, you know, poached by different recruiters and things like that. But I make it known, like, this is what I'm looking for. If I'm open for a position right now, that's in my main title. And it has pretty much a summary of my resume within my LinkedIn profile. So I use that. I connect with people in my current field, people at my current job, as well as kind of expand that network out to like other solution engineers in the industry. I think it's a very powerful tool for you to create your virtual, I like to call it your virtual table, right? Of like your mentors and your sponsors. Because they're going to be very important. Like sponsors are people who are going to speak your name in a room, right? And you want to make sure that you have those people lined up in your virtual table, whether you categorize it by LinkedIn or however you want to do it. But I think it's a really great tool to utilize in the virtual space.
All right, so I didn't just blank out. My connection shot out. So I think the question is about LinkedIn. Was it about LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's such an interesting platform because they're really struggling with getting Gen Zs interested in LinkedIn. And like, honestly, like, thank you guys, because I think LinkedIn is kind of boring and I think Gen Z is rejecting it. So I'm going to be really interested to see what LinkedIn to get you guys excited about LinkedIn, and if like something else springs up. But yeah, I think the points that she made are exactly right, which is like, make sure you have your profile filled out, make sure you have a picture. I mean, if people don't have a picture, I just think they're maybe like a psychopath. Like, I don't even engage with people who don't have pictures on social media. At this point, if you don't have a picture, you're not playing, as far as I'm concerned. So make sure you have like the things filled out and you make it easier for people to find you. I'd also suggest you can use LinkedIn to your advantage. It is a bit of a bore and everybody's out there like pushing their articles and it can be like, but you can actually use it to your advantage and start following some cool stuff. So follow the things that you're involved with at school, so it shows us that you're involved, and then just get involved with some groups that can make it a little bit more interesting for you on LinkedIn so that you're tempted to go on there. I always say it's the only social media that's not addictive for whatever reason. And then also a lot of companies like ours, like we're on Instagram because we're going where you guys are. So we're not like, come to LinkedIn, we'll have a party. We're like, come to Instagram and like check out what's fun about our company, you know? So follow companies on Instagram and Twitter and on the social media that you enjoy, because you can honestly get really good information from that too. And you can start networking through there as well.
Awesome. So here's another question. What are some of the conversation starters you use when networking?
That's a good one. I think it depends on where I am, right? But for me, I take things kind of from my personality. Like, I'm a big humor person, right? So if I find something that is just like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious, like I'll just tap somebody on the shoulder and like, did you hear that? That's hilarious. That's how we start the conversation. So I use the humor to my advantage, but I'm also studying the person, right? Trying to figure out what they're involved in. If we're out in a conference and we're listening to the same speaker and I'm taking notes, I may just like ask a question here or there to kind of figure out, you know, what they're thinking, because I think that adds more to the genuineness of the connection when you're just starting it off conversationally. So that's kind of one of my main tips.
Yeah, I think that the truth of the matter is that it's all boring stuff. Like, where did you go to school? Where are you from? How long have you worked here? How did you get your job here? Why did you decide to go into college admissions? And how'd you end up in, you know, university relations? I mean, there's nothing all that exciting, quite honestly, like just to get them started. Unless, I mean, I want to go where she's networking because she's going to be fun and like me and like be like, let's get down to this and like, you know, let's have some fun here. A really important skill once we get back to the real world and not the virtual world is actually inviting people into the conversation and exiting conversation. So if you're at an event where you want to try to network, best advice I've ever heard, and I think you're the first person I've ever heard give it, is go alone. That, like, literally, I'm adding that to like my tip box too. So thank you, Sheena. Don't be on your phone. And then you have to kind of like join groups and leave groups. So when I do a networking webinar or a workshop, I teach people how to join groups and leave groups. And really, the people that have to help you join groups and leave groups are the other people in the conversations. So if somebody sidles up to your group and they're like, they're awkwardly like peering in to get in your group, you open your group and you let them in, and then you say, "Oh, hi, we were just talking about trips that we took this summer." And then you just give them a little bit of line, and then you let them say something, and now they're in. And then when people slowly walk away, you have to let them and not be like, "Where are you going? I want to get out too. How do I get out?" Like you have to be like, "Oh, dang, they made their way out." So you have to sort of like respect the flow and get good at entering conversations and leaving conversations. And if nobody does let you in, you can just say, "Oh, what are you guys talking about over here? We were just talking about blah, blah." And then you can kind of insert yourself into the conversation, but they're kind of boring conversations. I mean, initial starters are boring. Where they go can be very interesting.
That is such great advice. I like that. Know how to leave a conversation, how to start one, or how to bring people in. It's so funny. I could think of a networking event that I was at, and I wanted to leave the conversation, and I think I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get some more juice." So that's like a good, okay, I'm ready to tiptoe away, like hold your hand up and tiptoe out of the conversation.
Yeah, and the conversation might be fine, but you haven't met the right person or who you came to meet, and you want to meet other people. And sometimes you're just like, I don't know, drink. And then you can't, then you're like, "Oh, I have a drink. Now I'm going to go." It gets tough to sort of do that. But honestly, I'm very excited to have those problems again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, those were the good old days in a sense, but hopefully everything will be back to some state of normalcy sooner than later. I think my conversation starter is normally a compliment, like, "Oh my gosh, I love your shoes," or "Oh my gosh, I love your hair is so beautiful," and then it goes from there. So, and then normally the person will prompt to give you a compliment back, and then you start, "Well, where are you from?" Or yeah.
Exactly. People love compliments. It's great.
I want to network with these guys. These guys are the greatest. I'm getting compliments. I'm getting humor. I'm all in on this network.
I'm learning how to enter and exit conversation.
Exactly. That exiting is a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Great.
Here's one from the chat that a student dropped. She said, how do you compete with the person who has all the extracurriculars and leadership positions on their resume? She's currently a senior, and she hasn't held many leadership positions or has been in any clubs. And that could be because of a number of reasons. A lot of our students are non-traditional students in the sense of they work. Some may have families, they're commuters. So, and as you know, Atlanta traffic is horrendous. So they may not be able to go back on campus when we were in the campus environment to participate and build that extracurricular resume. So how do they compete with those students who do live on campus, more of a traditional student, and has time for those extracurricular activities?
Yeah, I don't think you compete with anyone. I think you just be your best self, and you talk about the things that are important to you and that you're passionate about, and you don't get caught up in who's got what on their resume. There's a million people smarter than you. There's a million people better. There's people who are going to have more leaders always. So there's no competition really. I think that what you need to do is, and that question is, by the way, thank you guys so much for asking these questions. And these are like pretty vulnerable questions too. So like seriously, hats off to you for putting those in the chat. I got like a little goosebumps right now. But really what that question is like what we all worried about. Like we're frauds, we're not good enough, we don't have the right worth. You gotta get rid of all of that. You gotta erase that for a variety of reasons, but it's not gonna serve you well in life, and it's not gonna serve you well in networking and finding a job. What you concentrate on is what's unique about you, which is everything, what you're passionate about, what you care about, and what the reality of your life is. So if your reality of your life is that you would love to be involved with extracurriculars, but you're working or you're commuting, that's your story, and you tell it. And you just and don't compare yourself for 1 second with anyone else, because I promise you, your story is compelling and interesting, and you don't need to worry about what anybody else is doing.
Absolutely. I echo that 100%. And I know our society kind of breeds this competitive spirit, but behind all of that is really, I heard someone say, everyone should write a book, because everyone has a life story and nobody's book is the same. right? And I look at it from this perspective. If you know, people, there are much unqualified people in positions of power, right? And that should not hold you back. If anything, seeing what we're seeing now in society, that should give you the go ahead and say, hey, I'm applying for this position whether I'm qualified or not. And this is just a tip for the women. A lot of times we read descriptions of jobs and we feel like we need to check off every box of that. But men see job description, they say, hey, that one thing, I got it, I do it well.
Yeah.
I'm going to apply for that. So I want women to be more, you know, go-getters in that field, because a lot of times when we get on these jobs, you're going to be trained, you're going to learn. I feel like in life, you're just a continuous learner. You have to be, right? So don't let anything intimidate you. Own your story and bring your full self to work.
That was awesome. Both of you guys gave some real great advice right there, because I can think of a student who came into the office and just giving him advice on his resume. And he was like, well, I didn't have time in the similar situation. I didn't have time to be really active in a lot of clubs or build my leadership skills because I worked 40 hours a week at Walmart. He worked like the night shift and he had over a 4.0 GPA. I'm like, that's a story within itself. That is super impressive. There's no company who wouldn't hire you if you were able to articulate that and tell that story. So he got really, really good at telling his story and embracing, you know, yes, he understood where he had some shortcomings, but he understood the power in what that articulated. Working 40 hours a week at Walmart at night above a 4.0 GPA, that was impressive within itself. So sometimes you don't realize the value that you have within your story. So thank you.
Yeah.
Here's another question from the chat. Okay, and I guess this is still kind of relevant to networking, but this is more from the campus relations and recruiting kind of standpoint. And the question is it true that employers look for people with experience rather than a first timer in the workforce? I think they're asking, does employers look more for someone with a lot of experience rather than someone, you know, just entering the workforce?
I think that's a great question. From my perspective, especially being in tech, right? There are a lot of individuals who don't have degrees. They're not traditional in a sense. They've gone out and got, you know, certifications. And I think it comes down to being able to sell yourself and understanding your personal brand, right? Like, you know, the outline of things that you have accomplished. Can you convey that to the other person, to the person who is doing the hiring? Because I think that speaks more volume than what's written down on the resume. Like, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, that person looks good on paper. But outside of the paper, they can't communicate, you know, their experience and things that they've completed and accomplished. And that doesn't go over well with, you know, talent recruiters and things like that. You need to be able to sell yourself. So establish your personal brand and let that speak for you.
Yeah, that's good advice. The other thing too, I would say is that, and my advice to people who don't have a lot of relative work experience, maybe, you know, and honestly, anything that you do, you can make it relevant. You know, if you work at Walmart, whatever you're doing, honestly, the hardest job I ever had in my life for waitressing, ever. And so these have all been a cakewalk since. But you can talk about those jobs in a way that they bring out the skills that they're looking for on the job description, right? Look at the job description and see what they're looking for, right? Now, when you're in tech, you got to have very specific skill sets. But 100% women do that with skills and qualifications, and men do not. And the statistics on that are alarming, how women will not apply to jobs unless they can check off every box. You should never be able to do everything. You should not be perfectly experienced in everything in your job. You should always be stretching. You should always have room. So you should never really even get a job where you're perfectly qualified for it. You should always have room to grow in your job. So one thing that you can do is, because you're students, you're getting a lot of experience through your coursework. So when you're creating your resumes, and I'm sure they tell you guys this in the Career Service Center, is that you can actually have a section that's called coursework experience. And you can talk about, if you're a marketer, you can talk about campaigns you've done. If you're in finance, you can talk about budgeting and things that you've done, or work that you've done with the stock market. We're so interested in the projects that you're doing in school. And I do strictly university relations. So, you know, for me, we're getting people out of school. So our expectations of your experience are very low. our expectations of your education are very high. You know, what classes have you taken? What have you learned? And have you taken advantage of that? The other thing too, just to sort of solidify this whole theme that we're on, is that, you know, there's two things that are really important. Obviously, one, have somebody who has the ability to do things, not the experience, but the ability to do things. And then the other thing is you want to hire people of character. And so we see resumes of qualified students every day, all the time. So what we're really looking for is who has the bigger capacity to build on this experience and who has the right character. So those are the things you can really work on, and you can really put those in your personal brand and sell those for sure.
That's awesome, guys. I'm so glad that you said that, Meredith. I'm gonna let you say something, Sheena. I'm gonna let Meredith, I'm so glad you said that, because we are constantly, myself, Lakeisha's on the line, Marielle, we're always telling the students, we get it all the time, I don't have any experience, I don't know what to put on my resume. We're like, that course experience is valuable. If you are a team leader on a project, you've got to use effective communication skills, you've got to delegate, you've got to assign tasks and meet deadlines. So those are still very relevant course experience, even, you know, some of the technology that you're using in your courses, and you can use your syllabus to help you articulate it if you don't know how to explain what it is that you're learning and what you're doing. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Go ahead, Sheena.
Just to kind of double back on, just briefly on the job description, those things are changing internally in the organizations. I single-handedly rewrote our consulting job description and our solution engineer description, because I was able to see, like, we're not going to get the pipeline of candidates that we're looking for with these check marks, because nobody, especially if you're talking about getting more women into the organization, we need to make things a little more cohesive. So these things are changing and opening experiences up for you guys. So we are working internally to make that change.
Awesome. I do have a few more questions for you guys. I hope the students are getting a lot of value from everything that you're sharing today. I'm going to take an opportunity, and it's not mandatory. You guys don't have to do this unless you want to, but I do want to open up the floor for any student who wants to turn on their camera and actually practice their networking skills and ask these ladies questions, because you have two top, you know, recruiters and university relations professionals on the line who are telling you about networking, telling you how important it is to really put yourself out there. So if anybody wants to just open up and ask a question, you can just introduce yourself, ask them a question. This is a safe environment, so they're not gonna, you know, be like, oh, he's horrible or she's horrible. They are here to help you. So I'm gonna open it up for a student who's brave enough to just come off mute and introduce themselves, especially my CIS students, guys, finance students, guys. Feel free to come offline and ask these ladies a question, or just introduce yourself and just say thank you for today.
Hi, my name is Yashri Parikh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am a second-year student currently at the Perimeter College, and I'm gonna transition to the downtown campus. And I want to major in marketing, but I'm still on the fence with like my major, and I just kind of need some I just want to like be able to know what I want to do, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say too is I meet a lot of students who are not sure what they want to major in, or they'll talk themselves out of it because they think they won't get a job. So I think you should really be honest with yourself about what gets you excited, what you feel passionate about, and that's going to change. I mean, if you're in your second year, that's going to change over time. So sort of just try to pick a field where you think you could grow, and you might start as a marketer, you may end up in technology. Like it's a long career. So don't worry too much about that. But if you think marketing is cool and interesting, this is your next step, which is network. You got to find somebody who graduated from your school, who will be willing to talk to you about marketing. Maybe you could go shadow for a day. This is why internships are important, even if they're brief, just because you can get a sense like, I don't really like that. So let me back to the drawing board, right? At some point you do need to pick a major and then just kind of double down on it, and then just realize it's the beginning of your path, not the end. But have some just like moments with yourself where you think about it, and then talk to people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will keep that in mind. Like, I've been trying to look for internships or really anything possible that can help me connect with the marketing field. I've been doing some graphic designing and stuff, trying to for some clubs. Like, I'm a recruitment officer for this club called Hearts for the Homeless at Georgia State, and I've been like designing the flyers and so as a social media page I still have to get started on, but I've been doing stuff like that for them. So I've like, maybe that's something that I do like doing that. And I was like, maybe I can use that to my advantage and do some stuff for other people, and maybe they get interested in my work.
Sounds great. Just start talking to people about it and networking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yashri. I see Jennifer just came online. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hi, just to help Shiri, sorry if I pronounced it wrong. I'm also a marketing major and I'm a junior right now. And I've also been on the fence with like, should I stay in marketing? Because marketing is such a broad field. You can do so much. Like right now, I've been taking so many like classes for my marketing degree, and honestly all of them just have been business leadership, like observational behavior, and I caught myself just honestly leaning more towards that. And like, do I want to do only marketing, or do I want to narrow it down to being management and just helping people in the marketing team? And I think that just surrounding yourself, like even like on Instagram, following people who inspire you has helped me a lot. Because of COVID, I had a photographer that I was following post on her Instagram saying, hey, I would love to reach out to someone and be able to have someone help me with my website and help me with blogs and stuff. And I've never helped with blogs. I've never done anything with websites. And she was asking me questions like SEOs and this. And I'm like, I have no idea, if being honest. But I literally said, hey, I'm out here. I'm on the table. I'm willing to work with you. I would love to help you help me. And we're both growing. And I think that like with networking is taking that step of just throwing yourself out there, even just with people that you know, or just like, sorry, like a tangent, I'm rambling, but like, I've also been like deciding with that. But when I stepped into helping her write her blogs, I realized how much I loved it. Like I sat there and 3 hours flew by and I was like, oh my gosh, I've just been having fun this entire time. And it's completely not even in the school world. It is something that you just gain experience from. Like many people go into internships or going to clubs. Like I personally don't have time to reach out to go to clubs just with personal involvements in other places. But just doing those to build up to see what you love and what you do. And from there you can network onto other people. Maybe like my dream or my hope is that photographer refers me to other photographers, and eventually I build a platform of helping other photographers. And from there, I can do a business where I teach other people how to do it, and then I just manage that. And it is kind of like seeing a long haul of things. And anything that you do that you love, you can literally take it and use the knowledge that you learned from your marketing degree into something else. Sorry.
Well, you did a couple of things really smart, is that you took advantage of an opportunity that was out there. You didn't think too long about how you didn't know how to do it. You decided to take the really smart route, which is like, say yes, figure out how to do it later, which is a lot of what I've done in my career. I'm sure I'll do that. I have no idea. I'm Googling it, you know, during the meeting. Like, I don't even know what that stands for. So those are two good things. Now, where I think I can give you a little bit of advice is don't wait for her to refer you. Ask her to refer you.
Yeah.
Ask people to refer you. Say, hey, if you enjoyed my work, if you know somebody who's looking for a website, I'd be happy to work for them. So don't wait for the dreams to happen. Just start asking for what you want, and people will be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll refer you.
Oh, thank you.
That was amazing, guys. Thank you, Yashri, for coming on and not being afraid to ask that question. And Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on and adding value. You guys just networked. That was a prime example of what we're talking about here today. That is the art of networking. So I want to make sure you guys connect to each other, exchange emails or, you know, so IG handles or whatever the case may be. So that way you can follow up with each other and just do a brief check-in. Hey, how's it going? And, you know, who knows, the relationship may continue to grow from there. But that is the art of networking. I think you guys are getting it. I saw Carlos come on, and then we're going to go ahead and ask the last question and wrap up, because we want to make sure our guests go ahead and get back to work or whatever they're doing virtually. Go ahead, Carlos.
Hey, hope you guys can hear me. I've been having some internet connectivity issues all day, but I'll get started. My name is Carlos. I'm a finance and accounting major, my third year at Georgia State. And one of the questions I had was, it has to do with what Meredith just said about asking for referrals. I'm one of those people, one of those few people that have always thought of networking as, focusing on, selfish short-term gains for the person building the network. But, after the presentation today, I realized that it's more than that. And it's because of my old way of thinking. It's always been tough for me to ask for referrals, like Meredith said, because, I'm a very prideful person. I don't really like asking for help or going out of my way to bother other people because of my, shortcomings. So all that to say, what would you say is a better definition of networking, or what's a better way of thinking it, and what light should I see it in to help me, step out of that, to help me get over that barrier,
Okay, Carlos. So a couple things you said, which were really interesting, is that you're asking for help and you're a bother in your shortcomings. So you said all sorts of negative things about yourself, right? So basically the fact of the matter is that companies are looking for university hires. I mean, I am all but biting my tongue to not say, come check out our website and look at our jobs. We have a finance internship, Carlos, you should apply for it. We don't have anything in marketing right now, but follow me on LinkedIn because I have something I can tell you guys about later to go to if you're interested in learning more about marketing. It's an event that's happening tonight. So you're not bothering people by saying, I'm a person who wants to go from being a student to a professional. That is not a bother to anyone. There's no shortcoming to not having a ton of experience. How are you going to get experience? Basically, you've been trying to get an education, and that's been a challenge, right? How do you afford it? How do you fit it in? How do you do it with COVID? I mean, so your expectations of yourselves are so high. You guys, we're supposed to help you guys and lift you guys up. That's exactly what we're supposed to do. Sheena, isn't this what people did for you?
Yes, absolutely. We want to help. And you're new. So it's just take advantage of that, right? It's we love to take people under our wings and say, oh, I mentored this person and now look at them, they're flying, right? So it's don't, like you said, don't speak negatively of yourself. Spend those traits. You're a go-getter. You go after what you want. You're focused. You're self-aware. So, right? So you can start working on things when you're self-aware. So I think you should look at it as a circle, right? When you're doing networking, it's not just networking, it's connecting, right? And building those relationships. And that's going to take you far.
Yeah. And again, don't be needy, because I think that's what you're worried about, right? You're worried about being a pain in someone's neck. And honestly, that happens. So I don't mean to say just be hey, help me, whatever, but just present yourself as someone who has, I always say to people at the end of my sessions, the hardest thing about job search, there's two things that are hard about it, is one, it's a verb. So you actually have to do something. And the other thing is that you have to believe you have something to offer. And you can get on LinkedIn, you can network, you can check every box in the book, but if you do not believe that you have something to offer, it's going to be harder. You're still going to get a job, I hate to tell you, because everybody eventually gets a job. But you have to believe that, and that's the hard work about being human, is you have to believe you have something to offer. And as soon as you do, you'll see networking as an opportunity for you to say, hey, Meredith, I'm a finance and accounting major and I'm looking for an internship. And I'm like, hey, Carlos, we have one. Come look at my website. I'd love for you to apply. Nobody bothered anybody. You had something to offer. I had something to give, right? So it all works out,
Awesome. Meredith, Carlos, guys, this has been awesome. I don't know if you, Sheena, Meredith, I don't know if y'all seen this in the chat, but the students are networking in the chat as we're speaking. They're asking Jennifer for contact information, and Yarsha, this is awesome. This is exactly what we want. We want you guys to grasp the art of networking. We've got 5 or 4 more minutes, guys, and I do want to ask this question from the recruiter standpoint. Tell us, when is it too much? When students are reaching out to you on LinkedIn and following up, when does it become kind of nagging and it's okay, maybe you should kind of lay off? How do you find that happy balance into I'm networking, I'm reaching out, but that's a little bit too much. You may want to pull back some.
Yeah.
Look, they're
So I don't find people go too much. I find that like I'll invite you guys to link in with me today, and I know that you're supposed to write a note because it's the right etiquette, but when I do an event like this, please don't write me a note because I cannot write you back. And we're also in the middle of career fairs, so I have like hundreds of people linking in with me. But I say link in with me, not because you and I are going to have like, you know, this one-to-one personal relationship, but I will provide posts that will be interesting to you that will help you get opportunities, right? So I think it's important to link in with me. So I think I have a guy who literally every day sends me a message on LinkedIn, like every day. And like nothing's changed, you know, like I've given him the job opportunities. Now you have to apply and now it's out of my hands. Because as a recruiter, I don't have any jobs. I only can link you to the jobs that other people are hiring for. So once you get, we like each other and I say, hey, apply for these jobs, there's not a lot more that I'm going to be able to do. So like, you just have to realize like when you've utilized the resource. Like I met with Meredith, she gave me the job. We're good. Right now I'm in the application pool. So you got to be a little bit careful about being in too much contact. And also the other thing, the tip I have, if you're feeling like you want to reach out to somebody, but you're not sure what to say, do a tiny bit of research on their company and then say, hey, I just read this article and I saw that you guys are adding more tech jobs and I was wondering if that was going to make more internships open. So now you've shown me that you actually care about Equifax, not just like, Meredith, please find me a job.
Yeah.
Me too.
Agreed. I agree with that one. Here's another tip for those students who are like, I don't want to, you know, I'm a little afraid to reach out and network. I think Meredith or Sheena, one of you guys mentioned it earlier, but you guys talked about alumni, reaching out to someone in your alumni network, because now you have a common ground. You know, you went to Georgia State and was a Robinson College student and majored in accounting. And so I'm majoring in accounting. We may have had some of the same professors, you know, and starting that conversation from the alumni standpoint is also really, really easier kind of approach.
Alums, professors, career services, all completely underutilized. Every single, I mean, I'm sure you guys are crazy busy, so you're like, please don't send anyone else here. But I meet tons of students who are like, oh, I never go to career services. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's like the place to be. Yeah. And then usually they have alumni, if you have an alumni association at your school, they usually bring in speakers and have networking events all the time, and they're probably doing it virtually. Professors, they have huge contacts in companies. So it all connects if you network.
That's right. That's right. One more question. This is the last question, guys. How do you identify what is the best networking event? How do you identify the best networking events you should attend just to build your network, to meet potential recruiters, or to meet other people in your field and area?
Yeah, I think I touched on this a bit earlier in regards to like prioritizing, right, the different events that you receive. I would take a look at the bio, the description of what is being offered in that networking session. Take a look at the individuals who are speaking on that session, see if they're aligned with your career path, because that's going to give the invitation, you know, for you to connect with them afterwards. So I think those are kind of the top two to kind of cipher through the events that kind of understand what is related to your career path.
Yeah, and you know, I often when I talk about networking, I always say it's a lot like dating, which sometimes makes people really upset. Like, oh, I'm not good at dating, so you got to get good at dating. But in some ways, it really is, because think about it. You have your profile, online profile. You're going to events, you're speed dating, and you're putting out your authentic self, but you're also polishing up it a little bit because you want to impress the people. So there's a lot of similarities to it. And then sometimes when you go to, like, how do you go to a party? Like, how do you decide which party you're going to? Sometimes when you go there, you want to meet that special someone, right, with that special job, but maybe they don't have it, but they're like, you know, I already have a friend. And then they introduce you to their friend. And so, like, it's a little bit like dating in that, like, it's hard to say, right, like, where you're going to find this true love, but you got to put yourself out there and you got to have a good profile, and your profile's got to be honest and authentic. And also, in order to date, you got to know yourself. So you have to know yourself to network and to get a job. So it's very similar, maybe a more fun way to look at it.
There are less than 6 degrees of separation. It's not 6 anymore. It's more like 1.5, 2. And one thing, you don't want to trash talk or talk bad on a company when you're having these conversations, because you don't know who knows who. and it's very small. So that's one tip as well. Make sure you're, speaking positively about yourself and also the opportunities and the companies that you're, engaged with.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Today's session has been fun. It has been helpful. The students are literally practicing the art of networking as we speak. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Meredith, Sheena, we appreciate you guys. We're all going to connect on LinkedIn.
I sent you a note, Meredith. Sorry, but I sent you a note.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm so excited to talk to you.
For BCom students, be sure to get a screenshot of this right now. Get a screenshot right now so that way you can get credit. Remember to upload it into your iCollege tab, guys. Get your screenshot for BCom. Thank you so much for today. I'm going to always remember that. Look at networking as dating. You got to pick the right person. You got to find the right person. You got to make sure that they're a good fit for you. Make sure that, you know what you want so you can make sure this relationship is long lasting. Thank you again, ladies. We appreciate you guys. Students, we appreciate you as always. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
Good luck, guys.
Bye, guys.